Alright, so here are my pieces. So I have the top part right here, and then one side panel, and then the other side panel right here. So the way that I measured right here where the front of it would sit, and then back here where the end of it would sit, and then I measured the length of that. So that would give me the dimensions for the top part, and then I measured about how far down the side of my arm I wanted it to come, and that gave me these side pieces. So you can see here, these lines right here are the first drawing I did, or the first measurements I took. These lines right here, these smaller ones, are the first measurements I took, and those were too small. So then I went in and took some other measurements, and I am happy with this size. And then I went in and drew approximately where the lights are. So here I drew it a bit too big the first time. So that is approximately how big the lights are going to be and everything, and where they're going to sit. And then this one does have this little like side detail on it that kind of lines up with the edge of this light, and then about the middle of these lights. It's a little hard to tell. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and I am going to cut them with a little bit of a bevel on them because this does curve around the arm. And then I am going to cut out these pieces because these are recessed, and go from there. Right now I am not going to be putting any LEDs in this. These lights are just going to be craft foam, so they're going to be static and they are not going to light up. I will eventually be putting LEDs in this. I just can't find my coin cell batteries right now. I have everything else except the batteries, so once I actually find my batteries I will put LEDs in this, but for now it's just going to be a completely static foam prop. Okay, so I have everything all cut out, and I actually made a mistake because I meant to cut these out the other way, so that these marks were, the pen lines were on the underside, so I didn't have to worry about them coming through the paint or anything, but I didn't do that, so yeah. But I did cut a bevel on the edges so that when I glue it together it will curve around the wrist, and then I cut these pieces out. So next up is going to be filling these spots back in, and for that I have two options. I can either put these back in and just push them down a little bit so that they're recessed like that, and then just glue the back side. Or I can get some 2mm foam and just cut this out and put it on as a backing type piece. Alright, so I have all of my little lights cut out. I may go in and make these 6 smaller ones a little bit smaller, but I'm not sure yet. And then I have this one. So now I'm just going to go in and glue everything together. I am going to be using hot glue to glue all of this together, simply because I don't feel like dealing with contact cement today. Okay, so I'm actually going to recut these pieces because I left off a little detail. On the bottom of them they have a little loop where the strap goes through it. So you can kind of see right here there's a little loop on the bottom of them. So I'm going to recut these out with that little loop on the bottom because I don't want to deal with trying to glue that on and everything. I'm just going to cut it out so it's all one piece. Alright, so it's all glued together. It's actually still cooling a little bit. So as you can see, I did go in on the back and reinforce all of those seams with some hot glue. I still need to clean it up a little bit. But yeah, I did go in with my knife and do a little grid pattern here and then hit it with the heat gun so it opened up a little bit. But there we go. So you can see the shape of it from cutting it with those bevels. So the only other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to heat seal it, and then I'm going to very carefully heat shape these side pieces, because these side pieces do have a little bit of a curve on them. I probably should have done that before I glued it, but too late. So that's why I'm going to be careful with heating that up. And then after that, I'm going to give it a couple layers of Plasti Dip and paint it. Alright, so here it is heat shaped. It actually came out, wasn't as hard as I was expecting. The heat shaping wasn't as hard as I was expecting. This side didn't take as much of a curve as I would have liked because of this piece right here. But yeah, overall, I am very happy with the shape and how it's fitting, considering I made this in about a half hour. So now I'm gonna go put some layers of Plasti Dip on it. Alright, here it is all Plasti Dipped. Looking very nice. I did do the inside as well. So now I'm just gonna paint it. And it's got a pretty basic paint job. It's just a dark gunmetal silver with some silver weathering. This part is silver, and then it's got 4 red lights and 3 blue lights, and that's pretty much it. Alright, here's how it looks with the base coat on. So you can see that it's got a very nice dark metallic silver to it. You can kind of see on the buttons where I went over with only 1 layer. I did do 2 layers because this was my base color that I started with, and you can kind of see that there is some metallic in there, but it wasn't quite as light as I wanted it to be. So once that base layer was mostly dry, I went in with a very, very thin layer of just plain silver. I did use Plaid Effects paint in black and silver for this. So this is still wet, so I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to go in and do some weathering and do some dry brushing to give it some scratches and everything, and then once that's dry, I'm going to paint the lights. Alright, so here's where we are at now. I just went in and kind of did like a little bit of a gradient, highlighting the edges. Hers in the artwork does actually have a gradient like this, where the edges are lighter and then it gets darker going towards the center. And then I did add some very faint weathering around the edges, some very faint highlights around the edges and on these high points. I did go in and add another layer of silver to make it lighter, because hers is a bit more on the lighter gray side than I had mine, so I did go in and add a 3rd layer and lighten it up. The gradient is a little bit easier to see in person, but the camera's kind of picking it up. So I'm going to let that dry and then go in and paint these lights. Alright, so here we are. So I went ahead and just did 1 layer on the lights. I am going to come in and do a couple of layers because, as you can see, it's a little streaky and transparent. That's one of the problems with this paint is it is actually a little on the thin side, so you do have to do more layers than if you were using like a normal acrylic paint. And then the other thing I did is I went in on these edges here, the very edges, so here and along here, and went in with some white just to highlight it a little bit more and kind of make that gradient a little bit more contrasting and kind of highlight those edges a little bit more, because the silver just, it didn't highlight it as much as I wanted it to. Alright, so the paint is all done. As you can see, I did go in and do a little bit of white in the center of these, just to kind of give that effect that they're kind of lit up. And yeah, so this is the finished paint job. I'm going to seal it and then put the straps on. I'm just going to use a Mod Podge spray. So here it is all painted and sealed. I am very happy with how it came out. I did also go in with some super glue to kind of close up these seams a little bit more. So now all it's left to do is put the straps on. Alright, so to attach it, I just have some strips of black spandex, and I'm just going to hot glue them on. She does have like a little slider thing, like an adjustment piece on these straps, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to hot glue it all on, and then it'll be done. So it's hard to tell, but one of these is actually slightly smaller than the other because the front piece right here, this little tab piece, is smaller on the front than it is on the back. So I tried to make these fit accordingly. It also looks like on hers, like there's a little slit in here, so it actually threads through that. So I'm not going to do that because this is foam and I don't want to have to worry about it ripping or anything. So I'm just going to glue it straight over that, and that'll be it. So I am going to start it right here. It's going to start right here and then wrap around like that and then finish right there because that's what hers does. Alright, so here it is, all complete. And I do have it on over my Omega costume. And one thing I do appreciate is in the show you can actually see that her sleeve is You can see that her sleeve is folded and bunched up underneath this. So that's really nice. But yeah, there it is, all complete, painted, and ready to go. So I hope you guys found this useful, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!